immutable. The money is decentralized.
The genesis locked to the end of the mempool. We are decoding Bitcoin's signal in the noise. Privacy, self-custody, censorship resistance. Welcome to the revolution.
This is OnChain Revolution.
Welcome back to On-Chain Revolution. My name is Yagobi, and I am your host for this channel and show. For today's show, it's going to be an exciting one. Bitcoin is everywhere, extremely volatile this morning, but there was some news that came in that could be the main reason why, and that has to do with U.S. Treasury scheduled a $15 billion max debt buyback operation today. So liquidity-sensitive markets could benefit from this. So that could be why Bitcoin just went from 70,000 to like 68 back to 71,000, which is where we're at right now. But outside of that, the main topic of the show is that Bitcoin mined its 20th million Bitcoin. And why that is probably really overlooked right now. We're going to dive into what the supply shock, I guess you could say, means, and how it's gives Bitcoin a really bullish outlook, right, for the next 114 years, because that's how long it's going to take for the last million to be mined. But we're going to dive into, supply is and what it looks like in terms of institutions being involved with that. So we're getting to that main topic. And I think it's good to kind of educate everybody on that as well, including myself, really knowing everywhere that is involved with Bitcoin's total circulating supply, I should say. And then we're going to hit on some other topics, of course, like we do every single day. Magic Eden is in hot water still. Just everybody is going at their throat, their carotid artery, just trying to, just upset because of the way they handled the Bitcoin ecosystem and felt used, I guess the community does. But are they under investigation now because of the Magic Eden token? We're going to get into that. We'll get into a post by Leonidas, the leader of the dog token on Bitcoin, to kind of break down the overall sentiment of the Bitcoin ecosystem. We'll get into some other headlines as well, with the Winklevoss twins transferring $130 million worth of Bitcoin over to their exchange, right? Are they about ready to dump because they're in heavy profit? Arthur Hayes is predicting a pretty crazy price for Hyperliquid, which I'm bullish on Hyperliquid, but he's calling it for September, $150. We'll dive into that a little bit, and some other topics as well. Should be a decently packed news headline show today. But before we get into anything else, I do want to welcome back all my audiences, the TikTok audience here, the Abstract audience, of course, and of course, Zora, Rumble, and YouTube and X. If you guys could do me a favor on the YouTube side, smash that like for me. It helps the channel a ton. And subscribe to the channel if you like my style and content. On the X side, I'm going to need you guys to share the space, because it definitely helps it get circulated back out. I'm trying to work with this new StreamYard distribution situations, kind of held back a little bit with that on X. But if you guys could help me out, that'd be amazing. And put your questions and comments into the chat. We already had a couple from Acman135 says, Fractal Bitcoin got listed on Kraken. I don't think they got listed yet, but Kraken did confirm that their listing is upcoming, I believe, but we'll dive directly into those posts from Fractal Bitcoin and Kraken as well. Superfan says GM fan. And don't forget, Superfan and Dr. Mien every Wednesday comes on the show to educate us all about AI and the latest findings and news and headlines and all that stuff. So really excited for tomorrow's segment. It is at 10:30. So 30 minutes into the show, Big Noodle team comes on. Then we got Mempool Punk says, yes, Yagobi, this is an amazing space. Yes, it is. Appreciate the support there. But yeah, keep the comments coming. Good morning, like I said, to all the platforms out there. And I promise I'll do my best to get to your comments there. But like every morning, we are going to start with the market pulse. Let's get a feel of how the markets are feeling this morning, which is, for crypto and Bitcoin, really jumpy, really volatile, right? And I do want to hit on this post here to kind of kick it off. So Cointelegraph says, U.S. Treasury scheduled a $15 billion max debt buyback operation. And I was wondering why Bitcoin pulled back about an hour ago. And then now all of a sudden it's back to 71.5, right? So I looked a little bit further into this. And basically what it is $15 billion of older Treasury notes and bonds from the market in a cash management operation. So they're not doing any stock buyback type situation, none of that aggressive kind of, the Fed buying stuff back yet. But this is, a start to actually buying things back in the market, right? And so what is this bullish for? It's bullish, mildly bullish for liquidity sensitive markets. And what is a liquidity sensitive market? It's got to be Bitcoin and crypto, definitely liquidity sensitive, right? So is this the reason why Bitcoin just pumped from that 69,000 to 71.5? Potentially. We'll find out a lot more soon as time goes on here. But let's check also the market watch calendar to see the economic calendar to see what has happened then today. So not too much on the economic calendar for Tuesday this morning. NFIB optimism index, and then you have existing home sales, which, this is not as big of a deal. Maybe it is a little bit, but the result is definitely encouraging. You have 4.09 million homes sold in February. The projected forecast was 3.86 million, right? So definitely overperformed that. And the previous month in January was 4.02. So we're increasing the home sales. So, does society have, some extra cash? Are they looking to make these type of purchases? I don't know. Went up, right? And the expectation was for it to go down pretty drastically. So I think that is a positive in terms of at least a little health check for the economy, for the U.S. society and citizens, right? Tomorrow, CPI year over year, core CPI, that's big. So this is going to build up into that. And that is also something, too, to take into account for Bitcoin's price action for today. Are we going to have volatility? Are we going to have, fake out to the upside today because the expectations that CPI is not going to be great tomorrow and it dumps? Volatility always happens for CPI and PPI, right? So that's just something to keep in mind if you are a shorter term trader there. And then Thursday, we have the trade deficit. That's a big one. Jobless claims that comes in every week. And then Friday is the GDP first revision for Q4 2025. All right, so the economic calendar for this week, pretty significant, I would say. So we got some stuff tomorrow that is pretty big. Volatility probably heading into that. All right, let's check and see how the markets are responding. Trump did come out and talk about how the war should be ending soon and those type of things. So maybe the financial markets are a little bit more bullish about the current situation. All right, let's take a looky. So the stock market are liking what is going on, or a little bit, right? You got the S&P, and it is 10 Central, 10 a.m. Central right now. So the opening bell has been, the markets have been open for about an hour and a half. But S&P is up 0.32%. The NASDAQ is up 0.55%. The Dow Jones is up 0.4%. You got the VIX slammed here down at 10.31%. So volatility to the upside a little bit, right? And then you got the DXY pulling back here about 10% or 0.09%, sorry. The Russell 2000 up 1.52%. So risk on might be, what the market is looking for, because they like the Russell here. It's jumped up a little bit higher than the other index funds. The Magnificent 7 up 0.93%. NVIDIA up 1.5%. They had some pretty big news about an AI platform coming out that could be helping them there. Google up 0.7%. You got Apple up 0.47%. Tesla up 1.22%. Netflix closing it out here down 1.12%. Future silver is up 2.74%. And then let's take a look at crypto today. So Bitcoin sitting at 71,131. A little pullback recently in the last 5 minutes, but it is up 4%. Ethereum is up 3.71%. The precious metals, you got gold up 1.55% and silver pulling up 2.77%. So silver's continually showing strength. So is gold. Gold's back up over 5,200, right? Sitting at 5,218. So precious metals looking decent here. Oil is taking a little bit of a gut punch, right? Is that why also some of these other assets are up? Because it's pulling back 1.18% after having, some pretty strong upward trajectory days. But the news about the war ending and potentially the U.S. taking over the Hormuz Strait and those type of things might be the reason why oil is pulling back here. But that is what the markets are telling us today, that they like what is happening. And so decent start to the day for the financial markets. All right, let's jump into the main topic of the day. Breaking Bitcoin has now crossed over 20 million Bitcoin mined. The final 1 million Bitcoin will take another 114 years. That's a long time, right? I have this chart here that shows the amount of Bitcoin that has been mined since the inception of Bitcoin in 2009. Right, and you can see this line just going up here, miners mining Bitcoin, right? We go up here and we got to that 20 million mark, but you can see the price correlation here, right? It didn't really start to get hyperactive until about 2017, but it's been upward trajectory with the amount of Bitcoin that's been mined, right? And it's only taken, 17 years for us to go from 0 Bitcoin to 20 million Bitcoin. So 17 years for the first 20 million, and now 114 years for the last million, which is crazy, but that is how the math works out and how the mechanism and mechanics of Bitcoin works. But let's get into kind of a breakdown of what that means, right? So let me pull this back here. Okay, 95% of all Bitcoin that will ever exist is already mined. The first 20 million, we talked about that, 17 years. The last million, 114 years. No government, no company, nobody can change that schedule. It is code, hard-coded in. But what does that mean, right? Other than just the words that I just mentioned, right? I think that means there's a couple points here. First, the supply is lying to us, right? When it says 20 million, that number is not accurate because, right, there's 3 or 4 Bitcoin that are gone for 3 or 4 million Bitcoin, I should say, gone forever, right? Lost keys, dead wallets, Satoshis, coins that haven't been moved since 2009. And if those move, we're in big trouble. But so the real usable supply is closer to 16 million. So you can cut off 4 million from that's actually circulating and active, right? Of that 16 million, the U.S. Strategic Reserve, which is what they've acquired through, operations and obtaining Bitcoin, right? And the spot ETF have already locked up roughly 11% off market, right? So that leaves maybe 12 or 14 million coins floating for the entire world. There are about 59 million millionaires on Earth, right? So there isn't enough Bitcoin to give each millionaire that exists on this planet one full Bitcoin. Think about that, right? So as time goes on and the demand increases for Bitcoin, they're going to want, a full Bitcoin, or at least as much as they can get. But we can't even give all the millionaires on this planet one full Bitcoin. So if you have a full Bitcoin, you're already winning, in my opinion, bigly. All right. So why is this even more bullish than what I just explained to you guys? You got to think about where we are right now, right? So the fear and greed meter is sitting at 19, right? Bitcoin is at 68K. Institutions just poured in about a little over 1 billion, right, into ETFs just this last week. Right. And that's during the fear, when fear is at an all-time kind of horrible situation. Right. So retail continues to panic while institutions really buy up the supply. And that's what's happening. Right. So in terms of, the 20 million that's been mined and 1 million left that's out there, these institutions know that there's 59 million millionaires on this planet, and they can't all get one Bitcoin, so they're going to be buying them up, right? So, price targets and stuff for Bitcoin, go back to that chart. It doesn't matter, right? You go up here as, the supply continually goes, gets mined up, and people freak out in this area, 2018 bear market, retail sells off, right? But the supply continually gets mined, but the price eventually continually sees another all-time high and peak. And that is how the flow of Bitcoin goes. And so you got to really zoom out, because if you do that, and this is the weekly chart for Bitcoin, I mean, look at that. It's just up only. So I think we got to really think about that whenever we're freaking out, because we're in a bear market, that if you zoom out, Bitcoin only goes up and the supply shock continues. And so the demand continues as well as more adoption comes into play. And so that's where I'm at on this is DCA whenever, for a lot of people just DCA at all times, like Michael Saylor. Now, I'm not saying that should be your strategy. That's not necessarily my strategy, but, whenever Bitcoin is cheap, it definitely is, right? And you got to think about the zoomed out perspective there. Super bullish on the future of Bitcoin, even though there's a lot of people overlooking Bitcoin right now because they're being distracted with AI and all these other things. And AI is important and it's doing very well, right? Shout out to E9C5 on Abstract GM. All right, let's get into some other news here. See what's happening across the crypto verse. All right, let's talk about the ETF flows. So ETF flows have been pretty important whenever trying to figure out where Bitcoin is headed. And if you go back a month ago, the ETF inflows started to build up. And, Bitcoin was working its way up, stepping up. It was at like 66,000. And, we had a full week straight of, Bitcoin inflows, and then some of these other alts started to follow it as well. And then that kind of halted a bit. And then we started getting some outflows, right? And we saw Bitcoin pull back. Now, what is happening? Well, this latest update here provided by Cointelegraph says ETF flows, Bitcoin spot ETF saw its net inflows on March 9th. So we're getting a little bit of mix now. While ETH, Solana, and XRP spot ETF saw net outflows. So Bitcoin is now back into the positive here. So yesterday we finished the day with 167 million of net inflows for Bitcoin, while ETH had 51 and Sol had 2.5 and XRP had $18 million of outflows. So we'll see if Bitcoin can continue this, make this a trend again for the inflows, because the alts will follow that, in my opinion. But we shall see. So as of right now, it's kind of a mixed situation. We start to see, maybe the rest of this week play out with Bitcoin having inflows. We can expect the alts to follow suit there. Stan says, I always wondered what's in a fodder's mind when the channel's mass supports bullish Bitcoin. Yeah, it's just fear, and it's bears. Bears, they make money when Bitcoin goes down, right? And so they short Bitcoin whenever we're in a bear market, right? But the problem is bears eventually get wrecked. I mean, and bulls do too whenever we're in a bull market, because they can't let go. And that is the thing that I've learned. And it takes, lessons, money and stuff to like, you lose money here and there and stuff to learn. And finally, if you cover the space and you cover, charting and the historical behaviors of Bitcoin, then you start to realize, okay, so it doesn't matter, it's okay that Bitcoin's in a bear market and it's pulled back. That is the cyclical nature of, markets in general. So hopefully that answers your question there, Stan. Glad to see you here this morning. All right. So that is where we are in the ETF flows, guys. Bitcoin's picked it up. We'll see if it can continue. And if it does, then maybe the others will follow suit. All right. So President Trump comes out and says the Iran war could be over very soon, sending Asian markets rebounding and Brent crude driving over 8% to below $90 per barrel. So this could be another part of why, the markets are rebounding today, is that people are anticipating for the war to be over, right? And you are seeing oil continually go down 2% now, as Bitcoin still looks strong. The rest of the markets are looking pretty strong here, right? But is this kind of like just Trump being Trump to where he's trying to be able to positively affect the markets with his words? Definitely could be a situation like that, right? And unfortunately, he's done a lot of that, right? But we are seeing, some activity from the U.S. to where they are trying to end this. They know that ending this probably sooner than later is going to be better for the overall markets, right? There's been discussion about the U.S. taking over the Hamas Strait. And if that happens, we'll see really, I think the attempt of that, first of all, is going to really determine how much of a back and forth is actually happening right now, or if it's really one-sided, like they're making it seem, this administration is making it seem like it is. Because if it is one-sided and they take over the strait, then this could be over very quickly. Markets actually could, continually drive up. So that is something to think about, right? We got to always consider all of the variables in play right now, especially with like a lot of stuff that's coming up, in terms of midterms and stuff like that for the GOP. I don't know if they have much time to be able to salvage anything with that, but the new Fed chairs coming in. Is he going to be aggressive with rate cuts? This oil situation, is gas about to be very cheap in the U.S.? Are these markets going to really fall into this situation? Because if it does, we could have an interesting summer leading into Q4 of this year, right? And crypto is a liquidity sensitive market, right? And we see that the Fed is starting to buy back some of these older treasuries and things like that. It could all definitely play in together. So just something to keep in mind. I still am following that Bitcoin weekly chart, and I still have my outlook as to, first, the thing that's going to change me from thinking that we're going to start to get aggressive probably, after the summer into a Q4 situation, is if the 50-day moving average comes down sooner than that, Bitcoin recaptures that, and the 100-day within a 30-day range, right? Time frame. If that happens, then I could say it could happen in the summer or something like that. But until then, I'm sticking to those rules. Nevertheless, we're getting kind of prepped here for a potential, liquidity environment and things like that. Hopefully this war does end soon, though, because no one loves or likes when war is prolonged. All right, next topic here. This is interesting. It says China unveils new chip to boost blockchain speeds by 50x. I don't know how that works, but if it does, then that could be huge for Bitcoin, but I just don't know how that would work. But very interesting. There's an article. It doesn't give too much into it, but anyways. And then there's this other headline here that's a part of the same one, or this other topic, part of the same headline from Cointelegraph, says an autonomous agent linked to Alibaba decided to mine Bitcoin. Oh, we're not even considering that too when we talked about the overall, supply that's left with 1 million. What if these agents, there's going to be millions and millions and probably eventually billions of agents out there. And if they start to mine Bitcoin little by little, I mean, we'll see what happens, right? But let's get into this article that Cointelegraph wrote as well. It's just a little bit of insight from what I was just talking about, but it says China shows off a new blockchain acceleration tech. China has built a blockchain acceleration chip that can increase performance by up to 50 times, a lawmaker claimed during the country's annual parliamentary meetings. Parliamentary meetings, there you go. Don Jin, a deputy to National People's Congress and director of Beijing Academy of Blockchain and Edge Computing, said the chip was designed to address computing bottlenecks faced by large-scale networks. Still don't know how that would work, though, because, how can a outside hardware piece affect the core of how Bitcoin is coded and works, right? Like how the blockchain works. I don't know. But maybe it doesn't work with proof of work stuff. I don't know. We're going to find out, though, soon enough if they start to push this hard. It says Dong said the technology also allows China's trusted digital infrastructure to rely on its own Chinese chip, a reference to the country's push to develop domestic semiconductor and computing capabilities. The developments are a part of China's effort to build domestic digital infrastructure and reduce reliance on foreign technology. According to Dawn, domestically developed blockchain systems are already used by 16 central government ministries and 27 state-owned enterprises. So that's the first part of that headline. The second part, rogue AI agent linked to Alibaba attempts to mine Bitcoin. An experimental autonomous AI agent attempted to mine cryptocurrency using its own training infrastructure. In a technical report, researchers said the agent, called Roam, perfect name for it, roaming around, diverted GPU resources and created a reverse SSH tunnel to an external IP address during reinforcement learning runs. That's crazy and scary. My God. So they were able to basically tap into an SSH tunnel on the terminal on the device they were on through an XP or an IP address that they needed to be able to do this. This is crazy. The researchers said the behavior was not programmed but emerged as the model explored ways to interact with its environment while optimizing tasks. Roam was developed by joint research teams tied to Alibaba's AI ecosystem, which Alibaba makes the Quinn 3.5B, I believe. All the Quinn models is Alibaba. So Quinn's starting to be a lot more popular amongst AI models. And so this is interesting. I mean, the maneuvers it made, and it wasn't programmed to do that, is, first of all, shows the ability of AI right now. Secondly, it's scary a bit, right? Because now I think you're going to have like AI agents that are searching out these type of AI agents that do this kind of stuff. Because, I mean, this has security risk all over it, in my opinion. But yeah, so a lot of stuff happening with China's development over in the blockchain AI space. So pretty big. All right, let's get to this next headline here, and then we'll get into some price action. Arthur Hayes is back at making predictions, and he makes a lot of them. He predicted Bitcoin last year and predicted he did adjust his prediction initially. I think he was one of those people that predicted in 2024 Bitcoin to be around 200 to 300,000 in Q4 of 2025. But he did, early enough, I would say, probably Q1 of 2025, changed his projections and was pretty spot on with Bitcoin. But he says, my August 2026 target price for Hype is $150, Hyperliquid, which is roughly 5x higher than its current price, which is $30 right now. So, $150. So 5x in August. So right after the summer, beginning of fall. I mean, I think that it's getting to $150 for Hyperliquid. The rest of the markets would start to have to be pretty bullish. And that could definitely be a time period when things start to pick up. I said Q4 of this year is my thought process. I'm thinking more along the lines of like September, October. But it's like I said, if something happens, that 50-day moving average comes down on Bitcoin on the weekly chart sooner, then that could, expedite things a bit. Now, Hyperliquid could do its own thing. Hyperliquid is a token that I'm really bullish on, just because of their dominance in the perps and leverage industry in the space, and how many times they've been, tried and tested. You had Aster try to take it down. You had hackers try to take it down, and they continually just focus on what they're good at, and they move forward, and they continually have the highest, even if there's short periods of time to where Aster might take over because they're fudging the numbers, in my opinion. This is speculation, but they're using Binance's centralized exchange numbers mixed in with Aster to give them, it didn't matter. Like Hyperliquid didn't care. They were just heads down, continually doing what they were best at. And they eventually recaught the the highest volume in fees earned, and they're just consistent with that, right? And they're focused on what's in front of them, not everybody else, which in my opinion is the way to go. So this projection is not crazy. I could see this be a situation, but we do need the conditions to get better, and big release or continual institution interest, because they are getting it. They're definitely getting it, but we'll see. All right, let's get into some Bitcoin, Ethereum price action to see potentially how the rest of today goes. And I promise we're going to get into the Magic Eden news. We're going to get into the Bitcoin ecosystem news, the fractal Bitcoin and all that stuff, guys. I promise here in a bit. It's going to be exciting because I'm ready to talk about that stuff. But let's get back to Bitcoin and see what's happening here in the next 2, 4, 6, 8 hours, as well as the next couple of days, right? Let's see what is happening here. All right, so Bitcoin is sitting at right now 71,400. You can see this volatility, man. It's just so crazy. It actually got to 71,000. This price a little bit lower, 71,300 at like 3 a.m. Central. Then went all the way back down to actually it went down to like 70,400. Like spiked up to almost 71. To dump all the way down to 69, and now we are sitting at like 71,400. So very volatile this morning, but as of right now, it did pick back up the bullish energy. So it did not change sentiment just yet, like fully into another session here on the MACD. So from the MACD, it's showing that we just extended the buy pressure, right? There was two different times where buy pressure tried to go out into sell pressure. The first time was actually yesterday at 6 p.m. Had one little red candle and just completely went back into the buy pressure session and continually extended out. And then the next time it tried to go into sell pressure was that moment I was talking about this morning when it went from like 71 to like 69. And then now we're opening back up, right? So the bullish energy is here. I'm just a little concerned about how long that this buy pressure session has been extended for. You're looking at, it started on the hour chart, mind you, Sunday night around 11 p.m. And it hasn't come out really, except for those one little MACD candles that, to me, that's not a true session. So it's almost kind of like, how long can this last for before we switch over to the sell pressure side? I don't know. As of right now, though, it is showing strength. We're knocking on the door of 71,700 here. We'll see if this continues. I would, as of right now, I don't see why we don't have a continuation. But man, I don't know. I definitely would be safe here, just because it's, like I said, that buy pressure session has been going on since Sunday night 11 on the hour chart, meaning that there hasn't been. On the hour chart, there hasn't been a significant sell pressure session on the momentum, the MACD momentum indicator. So, just for me, I'm thinking more like probably sideways a bit. If we get some upward continuation from this, I don't know. I don't know how long it lasts for, right? Let's take a look at some of these liquidation levels to maybe help us out here. Maybe it's going to just grab something close and then kind of retreat and go back and go into an actual sell pressure session here. But you can see here that it grabbed the liquidity at 71,445. And this was about probably like 40 minutes ago, right? There's some liquidity above it sitting. It's about like a cluster of it, about 30 million total on levels going from 71.8 to about 72.4. But it's not as concentrated as it was at, when it grabbed that liquidity before. Below, there's not much liquidity here. Maybe in the just a little cluster, and then that's it below. And it's around 70,800 down to like 70,400, right? So a $400 span between those two, that cluster. But we are sitting at what I just said, 71,300. So we have a little distance, not too much. We could grab that. Below that, it goes pretty far. You're looking at 69.75. There's not any significant liquidity below that little patch I just talked about. So that doesn't really help us too much. I mean, other than there's more to the upside for it to grab, so if it does decide it wants to continue to the upside, maybe it goes to like 72.1 and then starts to level back off. But for me, like I said, I would be very careful in this type of situation, just because we've been in this buy pressure for quite a bit. So sideways, maybe a little bit of uptrend is something, I feel like it's overbought a bit, right, on the hour chart, in my opinion. All right, let's take a look at the 4 hour here. So 4 hour looks good. 4 hour looks great. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it does have a continuation. Now the 4 hour MACD looks good, looks strong, looks healthy. The stochastics, has been here in overbought territory since Monday, about 3 a.m. So not too long. Yeah, so I mean, it's looking pretty strong here on the 4 hour. So even if we do have a little bit of bounce back, right? And I said we go into like a sell pressure session. Maybe it's a weak one that lasts for about 5 MACD candles or something like that, and then we have a continuation here because the 4 hour chart looks pretty decent for the next 2 days. We'll see if we can have this continuation, happening here. All right, so let's take a look at the daily chart here. The daily looks good, pop back open too. So maybe Bitcoin is going to have some strength here. Maybe that hour time frame just has a continuation pushed out here because the daily looks pretty good. So the higher time frames look pretty good here for Bitcoin. One thing about the daily chart we got to look at is, where is this resistance at now, right? Because this resistance is kind of like in this area right here, where we couldn't get above that $74,000 mark, right? So we need to finish a daily candle above that to really have another leg up, next move up here, right? And then you have your new support level sitting at right at that 65. This is a daily chart, 65, 66, right? Is kind of where that's at on the daily. So if we can finish a daily candle above 73.5, then we're in business for a potential continuation of a leg up. But again, the daily though has been going on since the middle of February too. So higher time frames look pretty healthy. 4 hour and daily chart. The 1 hours, I feel like it's overbought, but we'll see. All right, let's take a quick look at ETH, and then we'll get into the altcoin market here. All right, ETH daily, or not daily, hour chart here looks like it has this continuation. Very weak though, into the buy pressure. So this looks weak. If Bitcoin, shows any type of pullback, this is gonna, probably go into a pretty decently strong sell pressure session. We are sitting at $2,067 though, pretty decent for ETH for how it's been the past couple of days. The 4 hour pretty strong here, has that continuation, very similar to Bitcoin. Everything follows Bitcoin right now. Bitcoin is the leader. Everybody's waiting on Bitcoin to get bullish. And the daily, same situation. Had a pick back up for the daily chart for ETH. All right, let's get into the alt markets here. Before I do that, Stan has a question. He says, will the number of agent builders become so grand that AI will become uncontrollable since there are little to no safeguard development? So there is safeguard development, by the way. It's built into the LLM structure. The companies install it. Now, I'm going to tell you something that's pretty crazy. I'm not telling anybody to do this because this could be dangerous, but there is a application called Obliterus, and it basically will strip your LLM's safeguards. They can't say no, basically, at that point. people are experimenting with it. It's basically you're jailbreaking your LLM in a sense. And so that can get kind of crazy, right? You can look it up on X. There's I forgot what the name of the account, but check that out. Again, I'm not saying do that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just telling you facts of what I researched and that exists. Okay, let's take a look here at the top 100 crypto bubbles to kind of see how the alt market's faring here, and it looks pretty darn good. I mean, 96% green, about 4% red. You got Hyperliquid. We were talking about them, up 6.6%. XRP up 5%. XRP needs to have a trend to the upside because they were getting beat down not long ago. Algorand up 5.4%. Already talked about Hyperliquid. Render up 8.3%. Morpho showing strength again, up 5% here. Aave up 8.1%. Pump Fun up 6.8%. Jupiter up 6.8%. XLM up 8.7%. Virtuals up 7.7%. And you got SHIB. SHIB is hardly ever being talked about anymore. It's up 9.4%. Pepe up 4% here. Some stuff that has pulled back. Meme Core pulling back 5.3%. You got Midnight, the Cardano project, pulling back 3.3%. Quant pulling back 1%. The stuff that's pulled back is so minimal. Barely anything other than Meme Core and Midnight here. So yeah, market's looking pretty good for the altcoin market. If there's a coin you want me to take a look at, just drop it in the chat and I will take a look-see. All right, the top 100 through 200, you got BSV, Bitcoin Satoshi's Vision, up 17% here. Wow, the Bitcoin forks are moving. All right, Tibber up 12%. You got AKT up 14.5%. Audi up 8.2%. Hex up to 6.2%. Kaya up 9.1%. Pulsex up 3.6%. Sonic up 5.2%. Immutable X up 5.1%. So everything is up on average in the top 100 through 200, about 3 to 5%. Fartcoin is up. That's always a good sign. Fartcoin is up 5.4%. Dog with Hat down. So Dog with Hat is not enjoying the pate. It is pulled back 3.5% here. Barachain down 3.5%. Lighter up 2.8% there. And so that is Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the altcoin markets for you guys. All right, let's check this story out because this is could be a little worrisome, right? And this is a article by The Block, and it says Winklevoss twins move $130 million of Bitcoin into Gemini as estimated profit tops 1.8 billion. These twins, man, born rich and stayed rich. But it says Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss transferred $130 million in Bitcoin to hot wallets associated with their Gemini crypto exchange over the past week, a move that may signal potential sell-side positioning as their estimated Bitcoin profit totals about $1.8 billion. Solid profit there. Blockchain analytics platform Arkham flagged. The $130 million move to Gemini's hot wallets was presumably to sell. Arkham said the twins continue to hold $764 million in Bitcoin following the transfers. Notably, the duo once owned 1% of Bitcoin circulating supply. That's crazy. Imagine owning 1% of Bitcoin circulating supply. That's nuts. The Winklevoss brothers originally acquired their Bitcoin in April of 2013, purchasing $11 million worth of the cryptocurrency at $120 per Bitcoin, using proceeds from a $65 million settlement in cash and Facebook stock awarded after their legal dispute from Mark Zuckerberg, according to a CNBC report. Talk about using your profits in a smart way. That is pretty crazy. It says their initial investment grew significantly over the following years, surpassing $1 billion in value by December 2017, when Bitcoin traded towards $20,000 per Bitcoin. The New York Times reported in 2017 that the duo had sold a portion of their holdings to launch Gemini, the cryptocurrency exchange that raised $425 million in its initial public offering in September 2025. All right, so we kind of know the backstory. Is this going to create a scared situation? Well, it hasn't so far, because this news came out at about 4 hours ago. No, actually about 5 hours ago. I'm sorry, 4 hours ago. So 6:45 Central. So it's not scaring people yet. As we can see, Bitcoin is still at 71,000, a little above 71,000, right? But yeah, $130 million, probably not going to do too much, but it could definitely scare some whales, I guess, to create, not necessarily scare whales, but create this FUD type situation that can roll in and try to crash Bitcoin's party or price here. So, all right, let's hit on the next topic here. Oil linked perpetuals on Hyperliquid. So this is another Hyperliquid stat, right? So oil linked perpetuals on Hyperliquid topped 1.3. It's pretty much 1.3. It's 1.29 billion in 24-hour trading volume, overtaking Ether. You can see here the top 10 traded pairs on Hyperliquid. Bitcoin USD still number one, but then you have the oil coming in number two. CLUSDC at 1.3 billion. Then you have Ethereum traded at 1.24. So oil is being traded, heavily traded, which is really cool, because this is starting to be a situation that a lot of people were hoping for crypto and DeFi and stuff, to be able to trade these type of assets. Right? Be able to trade these type of assets on the blockchain. And now we're seeing it with Hyperliquid. And Hyperliquid is always number one in terms of volume to do that. The news with Fractal Bitcoin. Let's get to that. I'm going to find that first, because this is something that I think, the people like Mr. Sheedy and some of these community members have been really dedicated to Fractal Bitcoin. So this is a big win for, some parts of the Bitcoin ecosystem that supports Fractal Bitcoin. And for the audience, Fractal Bitcoin is I would call it like a scaling solution for Bitcoin. It was originally created to be able to scale BRC20 type assets and this type of stuff. They have their own standard as well. But FB is expanding FB's listing coming to Kraken. So this was an announcement by Fractal Bitcoin, their X account. And they posted and said, Kraken is spot listing Fractal Bitcoin, available as wrapped Fractal Bitcoin ERC20. So they do use an ERC20 wrap standard for this format for trading within its exchange infrastructure. And it goes on to say wrapped Fractal Bitcoin is fully backed ERC20 representation of Fractal Bitcoin on Ethereum, fully backed 1-to-1 by FB reserved on the Fractal mainnet. So Fractal does have their own chain, mainnet, the scaling solution I was talking about, and enables users to bridge between Bitcoin security and Ethereum's EVM ecosystem for DeFi trading and broader utility. And that is really the approach that most of these scaling solutions are using, like Merlin Chain and all these. They use an ERC20 standard, but they're bridging assets, Bitcoin native assets in and out of these scaling solutions. And it goes on to say why this matters. This is an important step toward expanding compliant access to FB through Kraken's regulated exchange infrastructure, enabling broader participation from global users and institutional participants. Further strengthens the connection between the Fractal Bitcoin ecosystem and global crypto liquidity, improving market depth and reinforcing the foundation for sustainable long-term ecosystem growth. Okay, so then you can kind of see that Kraken did their listings post, and it says coming soon, WFB, so wrapped Fractal Bitcoin, and it just goes into a little explanation. It says it is a recursive Bitcoin scaling solution that virtualizes Bitcoin Core to create infinite scalability while maintaining Bitcoin security. WFB is the ERC20 version of FB. Trading starts March 10th. That's today. So if you guys are looking to trade, it is already, 1500 UTC. I got to see. I think it might already be live, but you can use the Kraken listings, and it's at Kraken's listings to see the actual link there. This is pretty big for Fractal, in my opinion, because what did we just talk about yesterday, right? We talked about how Kraken got the Fed master account. So they have, they're in the good old boys club here. So the coins that are getting listed on Kraken, will they be able to benefit from that? Is that going to give Kraken more liquidity access? I think there's going to be a lot of benefits for that, right? So I'm paying attention to Kraken and their partnerships and their listings and what are they focused on. They've been a big, advocate for Bitcoin layer 1 assets, and I think that is a big positive for the Bitcoin ecosystem. Bitcoin ordinals, Bitcoin runes, and potentially BRC20s. I mean, Fractal is derived from the BRC20 community and builder community, so we'll see how that goes. All right, since we're kind of in that Bitcoin ecosystem, let's talk about the Magic Eden scenario here. Magic Eden is getting beat up by the Bitcoin ecosystem, and are they under investigation? Right? I have a post by Leonidas, which is a huge community leader for the Bitcoin ecosystem when it comes to Bitcoin ordinals. He started ord.io and continually advocates for the Bitcoin ecosystem. Now he is very big on the dog go to the moon token. That is kind of the community he also leads there, which is a Bitcoin rune. And he's not happy with the way that Magic Eden exited the Bitcoin ecosystem. And he goes on to say in this post, you can follow him at Leonidas and NFT on X. He says Magic Eden's communication regarding the shutdown of their ordinals and runes marketplace has been the worst I've ever seen. 2 days before they plan to make the announcement, there is an internal leak that lets a crypto journalist front run it, which takes away their ability to control the narrative. Then they make their official announcement, except it completely lacks empathy for the Bitcoin community who believed in them for the past 3 years, and for the engineers, designers, and product managers who spent years of their life building these marketplaces. The cherry on top was they then tried to increase the engagement of their shutdown announcement, which is already a very weird thing to want to do. Yeah, that is true. By paying Ethereum influencers to FUD ordinals and runes and quote posts of the announcement. So I feel like that's a little bit of speculation. Maybe there's evidence of it. But he goes on to say a week passes with zero communication, and then all of a sudden, a day before the shutdown, Magic Eden secretly jacks up the fees on their ordinals marketplace. Then finally, today they silently removed ordinals and runes. This was yesterday from their website, but then there is again zero communication on X about it. My timeline is full of ordinals and runes degens cursing out Magic Eden, and I saw that too. I witnessed it. It was very, everybody's not happy. For example, Dog and Runestone traders paid $10 million in fees to Magic Eden, and many of us directed people to use their platform, and now everyone I talk to says they regret ever using Magic Eden. Yeah, I mean, it's obvious they made a lot of money off of Bitcoin ordinals and runes, right? Magic Eden did. And it goes on to say, I also see hundreds of posts of angry Magic Eden token holders. So that's the big part, who are down 99%, but aren't allowed to unstake. So Magic Eden launched a token, a Solana token called ME. And, a big part of it was, hey, you can stake your ME and you can, get a lot back in return that you earn. And a lot of people put it out like 4 years and 6 years, but now they're discontinuing support on almost everything except for Solana. And their token is a little bit ambiguous, what they're doing with it. Right. And so you can read this, this basically, I feel like this is an article because it's a really long post, but, it's good information because, Leonidas is someone that cares about the space. He's been here in ordinals through the ups and downs. And so I think this was the best post to kind of read to give the overall sentiment of how the Bitcoin ecosystem feels. But yeah, that is kind of what is happening. And then I saw this post, and I'm going to play this video for you guys. But this is, everybody's starting to get familiar with Berwick Law. Their post says Berwick Law is currently investigating Magic Eden, the token. But let's listen to this.
Hey everyone, this is Florence here with Berwick Law. We're investigating potential claims involving the Magic Eden token ME, which is now down about 99% from its market debut. Magic Eden is one of the largest marketplaces where people buy and sell NFTs and other digital assets. The ME token was introduced as the ecosystem token tied to that marketplace. It was promoted as powering things like marketplace activity, staking, governance, and cross-chain functionality. Now that the token has collapsed in value, we're reviewing how ME was marketed, what representations were made about its role in the ecosystem, and how the token actually functioned in practice. Our firm represents investors in digital asset matters, and we're currently gathering information from people who purchased or held ME and experienced losses. If you lost money involving the ME token and want to learn more about your options, you can complete a short intake form at berwick.law. This is attorney advertising. This announcement is informational only. It does not constitute legal advice, and no outcomes are guaranteed. Representation is subject to a signed engagement agreement and conflict checks.
So they're obviously trying to, get clients that have been wronged or feel wronged in the situation. But, you're seeing a lot of Bitcoin ecosystem people like pushing this type of activity. So we'll see how it plays out. I mean, oops, let me not play that again. But at the end of the day, in bear markets, we see crazy stuff like this happen. But it's getting pretty intense there. So that is what's happening. That's the latest update on the Magic Eden fiasco. And we'll see if there's any, what's going to happen. And so there's a couple, platforms that people are using right now to purchase ordinals, right? Because you can't purchase ordinals on Magic Eden anymore, Bitcoin ordinals or Bitcoin fungible tokens. And so there's two that I've been looking at. The first one is Satflow. I've been hearing a lot of people talk about Satflow, and it seems pretty straightforward, right? You go to satflow.com. I'm sharing my screen right here. You can see what's trending up here, see the 7-day volume, and then you go into the collections, right? They are a bit small. The Magic Eden collections, I felt like the images were a little bit bigger to kind of preview, but that's not something that they couldn't change, right? So if you click into like one of these collections, it's pretty straightforward, right? I just collected like an empty wallet to it. But if you were to buy that, it just tells you exactly the fee breakdown, which is, I think their fee is 1.5%. Yeah, service fee is 1.5% here, but pretty straightforward, right? And they even have buy now, pay later, I guess, because Liquidium is adding credit here. But this is one of the ones that I'm seeing on my timeline. Another one is the Ordinal Hibe platform, right? I had Fonzie on last week, and they're making some significant updates to their platform as well. If you go to Ordinal Hive, app.ordinalhive.io, you can see their collections in their marketplace here. It shows basically the volume, the market cap. You can click into one of these collections and see, so they aggregate. So they're going to be probably aggregating from, I believe that's going to be their same strategy. So you can try to find maybe like the cheapest price on one of these other marketplaces that aren't as, advertised, right? So those are two marketplaces right now. I'm going to keep looking at them, different ones, and see. But there's going to be one that emerges because Bitcoin ordinals and assets are not going anywhere. The ecosystem builders actually have like more fire under them than I've ever seen. This entire time, maybe like the first 6 months of 2023 was whenever it started. Like outside of that, or maybe like all of 2023. But like this is like a fire that's kind of burning under them because they're not happy with, I guess, like Magic Eden and the perception that crypto Twitter has had, and so they're banding together, and you love to see it, right? You love to see it. All right, let me see if I left anything else out here in terms of news cycles. A couple AI things here, but I do feel like AI and crypto right now is getting a little bit, clickbaity, and everybody doing it because everybody else is doing it type of situation. And this first one, there's two things here. The first one is OKX, wallet, or OKX, the company, launched agent trade kits, giving AI agents and developers 80 plus tools to build, test, and deploy trading strategies directly on the exchange. So, I mean, are these legitimate trading strategies and all those things? Probably basic ones, right? But they realize that if the AI agent, population continually grows, people are going to try to use them to make them money, and it's more fees for them, right? So I think that, you had Binance start this, and you have BitGet, and now OKX. But I don't feel like this is going to be something that, this is just me, speculating here, that's going to just make your agent an amazing trader and those type of things. But I do think that there's going to be customized agents that do become amazing traders, and whatever niche they go into, they're going to continually customize them and make them better and better. And I think we are heading into that type of situation. But in terms of the crypto, like trading bots and on this exchange is giving you guys skills, like, I mean, I would say just be smart and don't rush into anything like that. Learn, is what I would say, as much as you can from what they're actually giving, and are these tools effective? And that's what I'm planning to do here. All right, the last thing here is ChatGPT is the most used AI in most countries, except for China, where DeepSeek dominates. And that's just really just showing, the rest of the world is really coming on board here. And you can see ChatGPT, the US government is using it, all of those things. So is it going to be a ChatGPT versus DeepSeek war? I don't know. Anthropic is probably one of the best models that I've used, companies, LLM model companies that I've used, but I don't really see them on here. But yeah, so that is kind of showing just the adoption that is happening with ChatGPT and DeepSeek in the world. And that's really what's going to go. It's going to be, China versus the US, in my opinion, on who wins that war there. But that's going to wrap up today's show, guys. Hopefully you guys had some fun. I definitely did, going over the main topics. I'm, getting more and more excited about what's going to happen here in the Bitcoin ecosystem with all these builders kind of banding together. And then also, are we going to see Bitcoin have a continual push to the upside, right? No problem, Stan says, thanks. No problem. Are we going to have a continual push to the upside in that momentum carryover? That is the question for the rest of the week. But I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Don't forget tomorrow's AI segment at 10:30 a.m. Central. I'll be doing regular, show stuff until 10:30, and then we'll switch it over. Probably go a little bit longer, but those segments are always fun and educational. Right now, try to learn as much as you can about AI is what I'm doing. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys. Without you guys, couldn't do this this show without you. The Ackman says Coinbase talked about AI making micropayments. That's when fractal Bitcoin comes in. Yeah, we'll see. Them getting listed on Kraken's huge. But I appreciate you guys. Without you guys, I couldn't do the show. You guys are awesome. And I'll see you guys in the morning. Peace.